Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Now then, Leinster Munster will contest the Pro14 final. 99% certain we can say that now, March 27th. RDS is the likely venue. That's because the Republic of Ireland play Luxembourg that same Saturday. And it would appear neither side likely to be at full strength. March 27th being the week after the Six Nations finale. March 27th also the week before the round of 16 ties in the Heineken Champions Cup. The draw for that round, incidentally, happens tomorrow in Switzerland, but it's looking like it's Munster, Leinster on March 27th. Keith Wood is with us. Afternoon, evening.
Good afternoon, evening. How are you?
Very well. Last year's showpiece was Leinster, Ulster. It was a bit of a damp squib, and now, unlike January Thomond, where game time was very much needed for both sides, March 27th, rest will be very much needed off the back of the Six Nations and with Heineken Champions Cup to come. A bit of sympathy here for Pro14 organisers. These are, you want the final to be a big occasion and to feel very important. And look, player welfare has to come into it, but there'll be a sense now of most likely neither side at full strength. I'm not sure what anyone can do about that.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that isn't the case, Joe. I'm still hoping that you end up with very strong teams, as strong as you can have. And look, you do feel a little bit for Pro14, though it has been pushed, pulled and dragged, as is the Heineken Cup. It's been pushed and pulled and dragged and changed, and I'm glad that they've both been changed, because trying to fit in every single possible game that you can have in the season, where we've already fitted in a load of last season's games, is too much. But you still you're playing for a cup, and it's a cup final, and you want to see your best players on the field. I don't know how you can manage it, but it needs to be managed. And I think what we have noticed over the last number of weeks is that, especially when we're talking Munster and Leinster, they do seem to have a decent amount of strength and depth. They still have very good teams that are put out on the field. And there's an awful lot of guys that have played. I tell you, you'll find it very hard to talk to a Munster player who hasn't won a trophy in a long while that he should rest on the 27th. I think you're in it to win competitions.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, I hope you're right as well. It will mean, though, for quite a few players, their fourth week in a row, if they were to play all the big games, will be a Heineken Champions Cup knockout game. So something has to give. Not going to be Murrayfield, ain't going to be England and Dublin. I don't know, would Munster prioritise Pro14 final to win some silverware for the first time in a decade over a Heineken Champions Cup knockout round if one had to give, do you suspect?
That's a great question. I think if you're in a final, you have to try and put out your best team for it. I think Leinster have an opportunity of putting out not exactly two teams. Well, they had two teams that had a totally different team at the weekend, so they have that capacity to be able to do it. Munster don't. Munster still need a chunk of players back, but I think they'll be close. I think it'll be close enough to full strength from a Munster perspective. I think you have to go all out to win a trophy. You really do, and I'm not saying that it's less important for Leinster, because it isn't. Their intention is always to win trophies, and they've won a lot lately. So they may be able to blood more players to playing in cup finals than Munster can. It becomes an interesting conversation and a view on the strength and depth of squads.
The fact is, Leinster are looking for a fourth in a row. So at the weekend, they beat Ulster by 38 points to 19. The interesting talk after this game, aside from Leinster winning again, and even, with 15 internationals missing, was about the refereeing of the game. So in this game, we had one red card, we had 5 yellows, we had nearly 30 penalties. Dan McFarlane said afterwards, I'm going to have to discuss the game with Craig Garner, the referee's manager. Leo Cullen made the point. He said, clearly the game has been refereed very, very differently from what it would have been even last year. I was surprised to see some of the cards. I'll go back and go through the channels that we usually go through. So what we have here are two coaches saying, we're going to talk with Greg Garner, and get a feel for what's going on here, because to use Cullen's words, it's different to even a year ago. We had Devon Toner with a high arm on Michael Lowry, that was a yellow. Jimmy O'Brien head-on-head with Ian Mannigan, possibly red, that one. Stuart McCluskey stopped a Scott Penny pass, that was a yellow. The red was for Andrew Warwick, which was a forearm fend off on Ed Byrne towards the neck of Ed Byrne. Warwick, you could argue maybe trying to defend himself, but he got a red card nonetheless. What were your thoughts on, broad terms, the points of Cullen and McFarland, and any of the specifics if you felt one of those cards was way wrong?
Yeah, okay, well, that's a big, there's a big list to go through. We won't go through them all as a list, right? So I come from the perspective that the game is changing and has to change. I believe that the height of the tackle has to go down lower. I think that is something that's essential to the game for the safety of the players going forward. I think it puts pressure on the players. I think it puts pressure on the coaches. Both coaches' response to it is that it's changed from last year. Yes, it has changed. And a few other things have changed too. And I looked at it, I thought Jimmy O'Brien's was definitely a red card. And I think we need to try and get rid of all contact with the head. We have to. And until such time as, even when different things happen, you have to be in a position to tackle down lower and not to try and tackle across the chest to stop the ball. And I have sympathy at times close to the line, because by you tackling high, you can stop the guy getting the ball down. But something has to be done, because there are too many contacts with the head. There was a huge number of contacts with the head. For Warwick, when I saw it first, I thought it was a red card. I thought leading arm, red card. When I went back to look at it, I thought there was enough of doubt as in to say, yes, he led with the arm, and that's a penalty. Yes, and that's definitely a yellow card anyway, leading with the forearm in that fashion. It was where the point of contact of it was, and how aggressive that point of contact was. And I don't think that was quite as clear cut as some of the others. But for all the rest of them, I would have said, yeah, there were yellow cards. Like Devon, all you can do is feel sympathy for a giant.
Yeah.
Tackling the smallest guy in the field, but you have to say to him, we used to do a thing with Willie Anderson, and I know this is like old, silly kind of middle-aged talk back in our day, but Willie Anderson would have it, if you were hitting a ruck, you'd touch the ground about a metre beforehand, and that meant you were in the right position to hit it properly. And it was now this is for training, this wasn't for in matches, but the idea of your position for tackling was the exact same, which is you're in that position where you can make a good, hard, strong and aggressive tackle. So if I give an example from a game that we wouldn't normally talk about, Quins played Northampton in a crazy game of rugby yesterday, and I really enjoyed it because it was fantastic, even though some of the tackling was pretty much non-existent. But Marcus Smith, who people are touting to play for England, he's a really fantastic, exciting young 10. His way of tackling was he rushed at a ferocious rate up and tackled on the side, because he's a small guy. His tackling was incredible, technically phenomenal, and very few people managed to get an offload against him and the whole thing. And now I know it isn't just about changing it all to that, but there has to be changes made, because if they're going to keep giving yellow cards and red cards for the safety reasons for the game, and the game needs to be safer. Everybody's complaining about it. I looked at all of them with a cold eye over the weekend, and I said, look, get your contact level down, and then life becomes an awful lot easier. But yeah,
we're in the readjustment phase, aren't we? It's a continuation of the Six Nation red cards here.
Yeah, we are, and I think we're struggling, and I also think the coaches are struggling. It's funny, I remember having a bit of an issue with Joe Schmidt over it. He was a huge proponent of the stand-up tackle because it worked. But if you're trying to get the height down and you're tackling that way, you're more likely to get a bang in the face yourself. And if you make contact with somebody else's head, and the onus is actually on the tackler. So that's the way that's the way it's reffed. Whether the law fits exactly to that or not, I don't know. But that's the way that's the way it's set up. So you just have to go lower. Otherwise, you're 10 and nobody wants to see guys going off into the bin. Now, it does ruin the game. It does make it very difficult. I will say though, for the game, I think Leinster had so much in their locker if they needed to turn it on again. to score. I just thought that their energy level in that game was fantastic, and I thought an awful lot of what Ulster did was fantastic. I thought Ulster's discipline let them down. I thought Stuart McCluskey, when the yellow card, in giving away the penalties close to the line, I thought some of those were just needless. You're better off letting them score. Like, there's no point in giving away a yellow card at the moment. It just puts the team under huge pressure. 17
penalties conceded, just can't do that.
Well, that's it. You can't do that. So you're looking at that and you're saying, God, there's 17 penalties. It must have been awful. It wasn't awful. There was a lot of excitement in it. It was great to see Balakoon back on the field. He looking sharp. I mean, I know Stockdale has been brought back into the Ireland squad, but it can't be long before his opposite winger comes back on or gets a chance, because he just looks so unbelievably powerful and sharp.
Well, that was the next question. And if people are saying, Balakoon, yeah, no, you're fine. He made such an impression. He burst on the scene. He has his sevens background. And then people might be thinking, I've just lost track of Balakoon. He had one of those awful, avulsion is the technical term. We would know it from the Paul O'Connell World Cup. Hamstring comes off the bone moment. He had one of those, Balakoon. And it happened in a training match, a practice match. So people didn't see it. And in effect, he's been out for an entire year. So he came back, and so you're saying look sharp, because I was going to ask you, is this guy is a test winger for Ireland down the line, is he?
For me, he is, all day. I mean, avulsion is almost onomatopoeic. It sounds like a disgusting word. Yes, that obviously can't be good. It's a horrible injury, and he's come back, and I thought, sometimes you can come back and you're older. When you get injured young and you're older and you've put extra work in, he looked powerful.
Right.
So before, I thought he looked elusive and fast. I thought at the weekend he looked powerful. And for the try that he scored and the disallowed try, it was a pretty fantastic play. So I hope we have a summer tour, and I hope he goes on it, and I hope we get to see him in a green jersey pretty soon, because he's very exciting.
Okay, very good. Last word on that game. Ulster then bow out of the Pro14. Where are they? Are they still a team that are making steady progress?
I think they have made progress. It'll be interesting to see how they get on without Marcel Coetzee, because he has been. Look, he was injured for a lot, and they really suffered when he was injured, because they're a different team, and yet they got bullied in the pack in the match at the weekend, and that's where they suffered scrum after scrum after scrum. I thought they were under pressure a lot of the time, but there's a lot to be. They're exciting to watch. I'm very entertained by Lowry. I don't know what to make of him, because he's very small, but he's very quick, and he has a bit of a cut, and there's a bit of freedom to Ulster in the manner in which they play and go about the game. They're playing the best team in the Pro14 at the weekend. I know it wasn't their top players, but they're players that are playing with a structure and a style and a standard and a capability that is just at a higher level, and they struggle with it, and so they suffered with it. I think they're moving in the right place. I think they need a little bit more strength and depth in their pack.
Okay. Meanwhile, for Leinster, that's 32 of 33 matches won now. That blip against Connacht has certainly not morphed into something more serious. I think we can say that much. Munster beat Connacht 20 points to 17. Joey Carbery again off the bench, kicked 68th minute penalty, so that's big for Munster in a sense, because there was a touch of the semi-final about this. I know they would have had subsequent chances if they hadn't beaten Connacht to make the final, but there was a semi-final feel, and Johan van Graan and Billy Holland even afterwards said, we did treat this as a semi-final, and they've had their semi-final woes. A quick early word on Carbery. Two things. One, does he look like a fella holding himself and minding himself, as you might expect after a long injury? And secondly, how's he just playing?
I think he's playing fine. And I don't think he's easing himself back in. I think he took it a bit flatter than you'd expect. I think that everybody's just crossing every part of their anatomy, for him. They just want him to be fine and want him to be good from an Irish perspective and a Munster perspective, and on a personal perspective. He was written off.
Yeah.
I think nearly all of us had him written off, and Again, he came back. He's come back a little bit, not bigger, but he looks stronger, if that makes any sense. What I love is when he's kicked, he stroked the ball over. It's quite natural, you know. I think he's a class player. I really do. For me, he's a player that is exciting to see. He has a different non-Irish type of style. There's a bit of a freedom to him. I would want him on the field at every available opportunity, and I'm kind of curtailing my own interest in seeing him play just to make certain that he is able to get over all these matches. And you know, look, I don't think it'll be too long before he gets a chance to play and start, and then see what that's like for him. But I'm trying to look at him as a young player, not as a guy that we're trying to rush back into a green jersey. It's I think we need to make certain that he's looked after, same as we do for any young player, and he still is young. He's just been out injured pretty much for a year and a half.
Johan van Graan said of the win against Connacht, not our best performance by a long way, but it's job done. And they have the games against Scarlets, and I think it's Bennett on while the Six Nations is happening. So then suddenly Munster will find themselves in a Pro14 final and Heineken Champions Cup knockout stages. So how, you know, the body of work that's been done, say, over the last 4 or 5 months, how are they prepared for all that now? I mean, the general consensus is they're improving at a decent rate, and we maybe saw a glimpse of the gap closing against Leinster at Thomond, but we're heading into business end now, the real litmus test.
Yeah, it's hard at times to criticise because they're in a final, but I thought they were poor at the weekend. I think Damien Diolande gets criticism, and yet when he's not playing on the field, I think defensively Munster look quite off the pace.
Right.
In the back line. I think he is incredibly important to them. That was a really good back line, a young 9 and 10, and they struggled a little, and Casey got blocked down a few times. You go from huge highs of playing your first international to then playing and getting blocked down. How dare they, you know? Do you not know who he is, you know what I mean? But I would have said that the pack wasn't looking after that ball enough, and I think he needs to work on his box kicking. And I don't ever want to hear myself say that again, because I don't really want him to box kick at all. You know, I don't think it's particularly natural for him, and I think he has a bit of a delay in the time, and I don't think he's ever practiced it in his life. I'm sure he's having to do so now. I like to see the zip of the pass. I think Healy had some ups and downs with the game. He missed a couple of kicks, but that's fine. They're young. They're going to do all those sort of things, and Munster won the game at the end of it. Some people were kind of giving him criticism. Why are these guys being mentioned at all? Well, they're being mentioned because they're young and they're good, and young guys are going to make mistakes, and they did. So I thought Munster were only-ish. I thought Mike Haley had a fantastic individual try, and it required that, because I still thought Munster were doing too much of just the one-out stuff. Their line-out struggled. Niall Scannell had a bad day. I thought his throws were incredibly flat, and he struggled, and he got plucked 3 or 4 times by Thornbury, who was excellent. Connacht will rue the day, because they were very, very close for an awful lot of it, and they played a better style of rugby, but they didn't play a winning style of rugby.
If you're just tuning in, Keith Wood is with us. Rugby and Off the Ball is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team of us, everyone in. Let's get a word from you on the Six Nations round 4, which is upon us very soon. Murrayfield is the destination for Ireland. So look, Ireland, even with a so-so year last year, still managed to beat Scotland twice. Admittedly, both games in Dublin. There was the Stuart Hogg failing to ground the ball one last February, and then there was the autumn, which was a 31-16 comprehensive win. This was after the Georgia performance, you remember, and there was a sense of this was almost a referendum on where is Farrell and where are Ireland, and Ireland won that game comfortably. So Scotland beat England at Twickenham, looked brilliant. Lose to Wales, Xander Fagerson notwithstanding, and again there's a certain volatility about what Scotland will produce. So what are they going to produce on Sunday? My
expectation is that we're up against it on Sunday. So we haven't lit the world on fire. I know everybody talked about Italy, and I have to say, I still think the reaction to people after the Italian game was far too over the top.
Did you? Because even I was surprised when Stuart Barnes joined us last week, or was it Wednesday? It's hard to keep track of the days. And I fully expected him to say, would you both calm down, Italy? Will you stop? It was irrelevant. And actually, he said he saw genuine stuff there, Italy notwithstanding.
Yeah, but there was genuine stuff because Ireland had time. And with time, Ireland can do an awful lot of things. They're good players. They're just, when the confidence is down and you have no time, life becomes incredibly difficult. When that was a game at a perfect time for Ireland in their confidence level. So what have they learned from that? What can they bring to this game at the weekend? And when they bring it to the weekend, and they are going to be under an awful lot more pressure, and Scotland, it'll be like a dogfight. We beat them well last year. I don't think did they have Duncan Weir at 10 for that game?
Yes, I think they did.
Is my memory? I thought both Hastings and Russell were out.
I think Hastings might have started in Dublin in February, but again, don't quote me on that. What we do know is Finn Russell's back for sure.
Yeah, and even though Finn Russell is kind of barking mad, he's brilliant barking mad. So he can do extraordinary things. So he thinks his way around the pitch, or not. He reacts his way around the pitch. So that makes it quite difficult to stick to. But just the manner in which some of the Scottish forwards have been playing is at a higher standard than they have. So I think it's a really tough game for us, and I think it's one of those huge, big pressure games. And in many respects, for Scotland's perspective, I'm so disappointed that they lost against Wales, because they have been knocking at the door, not really at all, for 20 years. You know, they won the last 5. They're the Five Nations champions from 1999. They haven't had a sniff ever since. So I think they had a really good chance. I still think they do have a good chance. But they need to win everything. And one thing we will say for the last few years is when the big pressures come on, Scotland have done something silly, not putting the ball down, getting a red card for a silly clear out. You know, it's a lot of decisions there are being made by the referee and not by the players at the moment. So if they keep if they keep their game sensible, they can be really potent. It's just about getting their confidence tied into a performance and then a result for Scotland. Yeah. They haven't done that consistently, but I think they're capable of doing nearly anything.
Yeah, their best stuff has certainly been very, very good. A few thoughts from you on some selection dilemmas, I suppose, and these are these are good problems actually, really, as opposed to crises. So Stockdale's back in the squad. Stockdale versus Lowe and Larmour versus Earls.
Yeah, they're two interesting ones. You've skipped over Hugo Keenan, and you've said he's automatically playing 15. Yeah. Which I would as well. I think he is the 15. Larmour, Earls. I think having Larmour playing and Earls on the bench, or vice versa, I'm not sure yet. I don't think any of our wings are on fire, and I did like to see Earl scoring the other day. I'm a fan of his, but I think you can give or take either of the two of those. I don't know that Stockdale automatically comes back in over Lowe. There's both question marks over their defence. If their defensive glitches have been worked out, they're both incredible players. So it's funny, for me, I don't mind any which way you go for it. Of course, I go for Earlsy because I know him, but and I think he's a class act. But whatever players we have, I'd rather see them involved in the game far more. And the only one who gets involved more is Lowe. Yeah. And that is more taking the ball up instead of Johnny Sexton on a short little thing, which I'm not a big fan of either. I'd like him sneaking down a line somewhere at full tilt in off 9 or 10 on a totally different angle. I'd like to see them involved a little bit more.
Alan,
I haven't answered your question.
You've dodged it beautifully. Keith Earls, because he's from Munster, and then I'm not bothered about the rest. That was what I heard.
Yeah, look, I'll get criticism. I'll take that. That's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
Well, your fellow Munsterman, Alan Quinlan, said he probably on balance wouldn't start Conor Murray on Sunday. Gibson Park has done enough, and obviously there's Craig Casey floating around there. Well, seeing he's not here now, you bought what Stuart Barnes was saying last week about, well, in effect, if people missed it, they can go back and have a watch of Stuart Barnes with Keith last week. But he said really the Murray-Sexton combination for him these days, at the age that maybe Sexton in particular is at, he's not sure that's the right chemistry, the right balance. He much prefers a runner in there like Gibson Park to take some of the attention off Johnny. You pretty much agreed with that, did you, from memory?
Yeah, I went quiet on it actually because it was an interesting thought, and look, I don't think Conor has been the same since he got injured, and I don't think he is a running threat anywhere near as much as he was before he got injured. So for that reason, I agree that they ignore 9 and 10, and I've said that for quite a while. Yeah. When we have Johnny and Sexton, they're putting all their focus on 12-13, which cuts down a lot of space that we have on the outside, if there's any space. I get that, but I thought I thought Gibson Park was given a bit of a armchair ride the last time, and yeah, I don't know. Again, look, you have to make changes at some stage, and you have to decide what it is you want to go and do. You have to decide that you're going to have Johnny at 10 or not at 10, or he's playing there, or you're going to have to make a change somewhere else. And I'm not saying that Gibson Park is absolutely the answer, and I think it's too early yet for Craig Casey. So I think there's a lot of competition around it. I want to answer that question. It's funny. Do I think that we have to have 9 and 10 Conor Murray and Sexton? No, I don't. And I think it is. I'd rather see Conor back fully fit, and maybe he doesn't get back fully fit, but I know that he has a huge amount to offer. He is a good bit younger than Johnny. Does he have a lot to offer for longer? Or is Johnny that important that is the case, that we have to keep him there? For me, I'd be looking at both of them and saying it could be unlikely that they'll both play in a World Cup. So at some stage, where are we making the changes? When is that going to happen? And do we wait until the very last moment before we do it and we go in undercooked? So it's hard that as a conversation, and fans get really annoyed with that because they say, well, we're not going to win this Six Nations, why don't we make wholesale changes? Well, the game is hemorrhaging money, and the further up that you end up in a Six Nations can be worth a huge amount of money to you and can help save the game a little bit more. Yeah. So that can be part and parcel of it. That's like, we're pretty much funded by the Six Nations competition. That is the big one for us, that and the home autumn matches. And if we can win those, it makes it an awful lot better for us.
There's a couple of other selection questions in the pack, but the clock's against me, and frankly we'll find out the team soon enough. But the front row and the back row are kind of interesting. But before you do go, Stephen Jones yesterday in the Sunday Times, it was on the front page of their sports section, he said that effectively now we're looking at a home tour. South Africa will play 4 test matches in the 4 capital cities come the summertime. Westminster have given the home tour their backing. The only hitch will be approval from Dublin, which we can probably expect. And then I'm presuming fans will certainly be at the UK matches, whatever about here. I mean, there's going to be 10,000 fans at Premier League matches in May. So I would think by June, July territory, that'll be up again. It's kind of funny, I hadn't given it too much thought over the last couple of months, and then suddenly when I saw it yesterday in black and white, the home tour, this is what's happening, I thought, I actually wish now they'd postponed it a year, because we're saying another 12 years to a South African tour. I mean, so 24 years will have gone by from 09. Just doesn't seem like the way to do it at all.
And again, I'm conflicted on this, just in terms of that I'd like to see the Lions play. I don't think the Lions is a team to be playing at home. It's a touring side. I would have delayed it by 4 years, because if you delay it by just 1 year, it causes a huge amount of additional confusion to other parts of the game. I would have just pushed the whole schedule back 4 years, and I think that would be the best one to do it. Commercial concerns could mean that the Lions would have to pay back money that they probably don't have. They only make money in this period of time. They don't ever hold on to a huge amount of money. If this is the next best option or the only other option, maybe again for financial reasons it has to happen. But for me, I would have pushed the whole thing back 4 years.
That's more akin to a cancellation, some people would say, wouldn't they?
Well, I think we've been trying to fit in every single bit of sport on the most extraordinary, after the most extraordinary 12 months of all our existence. You know, like nothing is normal. And yet we try to say, well, yes, but we can factor every single thing in. I'm not so sure about that. And I love the Lions. So I want to see the Lions play. And if the Lions play here, yeah, we'll watch them. And maybe that's necessary. That's the other point. Maybe it absolutely has to happen to keep it in the schedule, or what would be the ramifications if it isn't. And maybe it just absolutely has to be there. It's a pale version of what the Lions is usually, but maybe that's what we have to have, and maybe we have to accept that.
Yes, no, we do. And look, come those 4 Saturdays in June or July, and not least, maybe we all try and get tickets for the one in Dublin on a sunny day. There'll be worse things to do, so it's not disastrous either, for sure.
Absolutely.
Listen, thanks so much, Keith. We'll talk to you again.
Pleasure. Cheers, Joe.
See ya.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.